Hello YouTube! My name is Scott, and welcome to another episode of Opinions No One Cares About, a video series that worms its way into your brain and sort of festers there, like a parasite with low video quality. So I admit I was kind of on the fence about what this particular episode was going to be about. But I recently made the decision to take a break for a while, look at this first bit as a first season of sorts. This will be episode 13, and 13 episodes is plenty for a season when it comes to streaming. So, I chose a fandom that I belong to, and that I have referenced before but haven't made a video about yet. No, not that one. You know, I would love to, but I don't have any theories on it, and I'm actually not caught up yet. No, I said I referenced it before. Do you mind if I tell them? Thank you. I'm going to talk about Supernatural. Now, it occurs to me that some of you may not be familiar with the show, so
Let me explain. No, there is too much. Let me sum up.
this is Sam and Dean Winchester. They're brothers who hunt monsters, because in the world of Supernatural, they're all real. Urban legends, vengeful spirits, vampires, werewolves, witches, evil genies, you name it, the Winchesters have probably killed it. Traveling the country in their father's black 67 Chevy Impala. That car is classic. Along the way, the show kind of took a turn into Christian dogma when they were joined by the angel Castiel and learned that God is somehow missing. They proceeded to battle other angels, whose motives were not always pure in the absence of God, demons, creatures called Leviathans that were created before angels, demons, or humans. There was the darkness, also known as Amara, the actual sister of God, because, you need a balance between light and dark. And more things than I can mention right now. Oh yeah, and they've literally stopped multiple apocalypses. I don't have the time or disk space to fully explain all 15 seasons. But the 15 season thing is what I want to talk about. Because good old COVID-19 did the same thing to Supernatural that it did to every other show in production this year. Shut it right down. Maybe half the episodes were made, they're on Netflix, and the rest are going to be released as a bonus season, from what I've heard. So that leaves the door open to try and figure out how Supernatural is going to end. Well, buckle up, guys, because we're going to get into my theory on the subject. But first, we need a little bit of backstory. The last episode of Season 14 features the Winchesters having it out with God, who wants them to kill a young man named Jack. Jack is a Nephilim, which, according to the lore of Supernatural, is the offspring of a human and an angel. In Jack's case, he's the son of the Archangel Lucifer. You think you have issues with your family? Try being the son of the devil and the grandson of God. It's never specifically said, but it's implied that Jack might be more powerful than God himself, which of course he can't have. And when Dean won't kill Jack, God does. In response, Sam shoots God with a gun he created called the Equalizer, which is capable of wounding God, but causes Sam to suffer the same wound. God, who apparently didn't see that coming, gets rather upset, but responds in a manner one would expect from a loving, forgiving deity, by opening the gates of hell. Meanwhile, Jack wakes up in a place called the Empty. This is where demons and angels go when they die on Supernatural. It's pitch black and there's nothing there except the Empty, because it's basically a storage space where they sleep for all eternity. Jack being awake should be causing problems, but there's no time for that, because he's visited by Billy, the Reaper who took over his death, who tells him he's not quite done living yet. So now we have a weakened God with a bullet hole in his chest that, weirdly, he can't heal. He kidnaps Sam at one point, trying to figure out what's going on, but that is when God realizes that it is Sam's hope that Dean and Castiel are going to come save him that is what's causing the problem. So God decides to give Sam a vision of what the future will look like if he, God, is killed. Unfortunately, God's plan is very effective, Because when Dean and Castiel do show up with a way to bind God's power, not even just kill him, Sam can't do it. He's lost all hope. You can tell he wants to, but he can't. He's lost it. It's just not in him. And then, the next thing you know, the wound in God's chest is healed, as well as Sam's, and God is back to full health once more.
And to make a long story short, too late.
That's where we are now, more or less, minus the B-plots. So now we enter into the realm of conjecture. Quick side note, though. Sam lost his hope and embraced despair. For those of you who will actually get this reference, when did he turn into Junko Enoshima? So here's what I'm thinking. The supernatural version of God considers himself to be first and foremost a writer. He's traveled to all these alternate realities, which is just different versions of the story he's been writing. And when we first meet him on the show, he's just this guy named Chuck, who, according to Castiel, is an actual prophet of God, who turned Sam and Dean's early adventures into a series of semi-successful novels. So it occurs to me that the writer in God will find it incredibly poetic to bring the Winchesters back to where it all started. That's 22 years ago from the time that the show started, mind you. Now, he's probably going to have this long-winded monologue prepared about how his favorite story will finally, truly end, which would be quite a feat, because between the two of them, Sam and Dean Winchester have died, no joke, around 115 times. Granted, most of those were attributed to Dean, and it was when the two of them were trapped in a time loop, and they might not actually count, but still. Sam and Dean, however, are probably not going to want to listen to God's spiel, because this time around, they should have backup. See, after God got his full power back, Billy actually resurrected Jack from the empty, because he might be the only one who's actually powerful enough to kill God. And if she was smart, she won't have let him return alone. It's going to be time for a little bit of a family reunion. So just imagine the look on God's face when he's in the Winchesters' childhood home, thinking he's finally got everything under control. And next thing you know, he's surrounded by his family. There's his grandson Jack, and his sons, the Archangels. Michael, who's already freed from a cage in hell using Sam and Dean's half-brother Adam as his vessel, really long story there, is already there. And from the empty, Jack should have been able to bring back Raphael and Gabriel, love Gabriel, and of course, Lucifer. All of them will have been able to be brought up to speed on what God is up to, because Castiel has already done it once to Michael. Lucifer's not really going to need to know, because there's a good chance he's already going to be upset at his father for killing his son, so it's going to be him that pulls out the equalizer. It was previously destroyed by the demoness Lilith, but I'm willing to bet whatever a demoness destroys, an archangel can recreate. I envision some monologuing here on Lucifer's part, waving the gun around, complaining about everything, but side note, mad props to Mark Pellegrino. I mean, between Lucifer and Jacob and Bishop, and you can look up those references yourself, he's carved out quite a niche as a likable villain. I would tip my hat to him, except that this hat, if I have anything to say about it, is never coming off during a video. Now, I don't know who's going to interrupt Lucifer's little temper tantrum, but I do know that a fight will probably break out. Human, angel, archangel, Nephilim, and God all duking it out before Sam pops up victorious, equalizer in his hand and pointed straight at God again. And then, of course, you're going to get some rigmarole from God about how they've been through this before, and he'll just be able to heal himself again, before Dean and Kaz step up to hold the equalizer with Sam. Given the way things on this show usually work, there's a good chance the rules will be able to be bent so that all three of them will suffer the same fate as God, which they immediately do by shooting him. Now, as he's wounded and most likely unable to heal himself, Jack will definitely be more powerful than him. The general consensus, Lucifer leading the way, is that Jack should just kill God, but he has other ideas. Drawing upon his own power and that of the archangels around him, the floor will start to shake, there'd be rumbling, a large flash of light, and the next thing you know, God is now mortal. Chuck Shirley, as he's now going to be known, will be sent out into the world to make his own way, and you get some sort of line like, well, he wanted to be a writer so bad, let's see him do it on his own. A very grateful Jack, and maybe the Archangels as well, should be able to heal the Winchesters and Kaz of their wounds before returning to heaven, where they really need to go, because without any holy power around to literally keep the lights on, heaven will shut down and most likely take existence with it. The Winchesters and Kaz will be returned to the bunker of the Men of Letters, again, long story, where most likely Sam will float the idea that maybe the hunters in the world need a little more formal education. Before long, you see a sort of hunter academy set up, drawing on the resources of the Men of Letters bunker in order to help the hunters hunt more efficiently. And then you get a little montage of time passing and things getting better, before finally, at the end, we see Sam and Dean finally get their reward, dying and going to heaven, most likely to the strains of Carry On, My Wayward Son. Now, do I think this is actually going to be the way the show ends? Probably not. For one thing, the whole ending with a look into the future thing is a bit cliche. I don't know if Supernatural would go that way. I myself, just thinking about it, recalled a very similar ending to the original version of Charmed. Secondly, I didn't mention anything about a noble sacrifice, because more often than not there is a noble sacrifice involved when the Winchesters are trying to get rid of a superpowered enemy. That's kind of their thing. Although, to be fair, that was when God was writing the story, so if there isn't one this time, then that would actually make sense too. Third, the idea that they'll use the equalizer again is highly unlikely. Usually, you see the kind of thing where they try one method of defeating a monster, it doesn't work, and then after some time has passed, they tend to find another method that works much more effectively. So this time, they used the equalizer and it wounded God, but they probably won't be doing that again, because I think in script writing that's called a double beat. But there's a good chance that they will defeat God, because he's making the same mistake every monster that has faced the Winchesters makes every single time. They never attack them quick enough. I mean, you have all these evil creatures with plans to take over, and if they just did it a little bit quicker, then they probably would have succeeded long before now. But when the Winchesters have the time that it takes for these monsters to carry out their plans effectively, they always win. Which is why I have said many times, never give a Winchester time to solve a problem. They've had the time, especially with all these episodes that are going to be coming out, so as weird as it sounds, God doesn't stand a chance. Oh, also, I don't know if you guys noticed, you fans of the show out there, I completely forgot Bobby. And you know what? They better not. If Bobby Singer doesn't make an appearance in the final episode of Supernatural or somewhere very close to it, then those showrunners are just a bunch of idiots. So there you have it, folks. Fans look at the ending of Supernatural and what he thinks is going to happen, even though there's a pretty good chance he's going to be entirely wrong. And this is going to be my last episode for a while. It's like I was saying, this has been basically a season, so I'm going to cut it short, and no, it has nothing to do with COVID. I might continue doing tweet reads on the off weeks, or on the on weeks, who knows. I'm going to have all this time and possibly nothing to do. But I think I am going to have to keep making videos of one kind or another to try and keep my juices flowing, as that strange expression goes. But anyway, if you like this video, or if you have your own theories on how you think Supernatural is going to end, comment below. Please excuse my blah blah blah. Like the video, please, share it around, subscribe if you haven't, and until next time, whenever that may be, My name is Scott, and this has been Opinions No One Cares About. Everybody has opinions. This one was mine.